I've seen significant debate online about Harry and Meghan's children and their use of Prince and Princess and HRH titles. Many of you may be wondering about the law that underpins this and whether they do or do not have the birthright to those titles, and more broadly, whether they should be using them. Stay tuned. So first of all, please excuse the croaky throat. Bugs and viruses get to us all. So much of the confusion came around these titles of Harry and Meghan's children because the Buckingham Palace website for the last 6 months still referred to them as Master and Miss as opposed to Prince, Princess or HRH. Now, however, the succession list on that website has been updated to reflect the change, because the bottom line in law is that as soon as King Charles acceded to the throne, the children had the automatic right to adopt the titles of HRH and Prince and Princess. So let's look a little bit about the rules that underpin this. Now, the legal rights to use HRH are somewhat complex and involve several legal principles, including the Letters Patent of 1917 and the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, which of course was repealed by the Succession to the Crown Act of 2013. And the Succession to the Crown Act was indeed rather interesting. Section 1 provides that in determining the succession to the crown, the gender of a person born after the 28th of October 2011 does not give that person or that person's descendants precedence over any other person whenever born. In other words, as the title of that section suggests, succession to the crown does not depend on gender. The second part of the Act removed the disqualification arising from marriage to a Roman Catholic. Thirdly was the replacement of one of the requirements of the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, which was repealed, that being that all descendants of George II should obtain royal approval for all of their marriages. Moving forwards, this requirement now extends only to the first 6 in line, and the penalty for disobeying this rule would be removal from the line of succession without suffering invalidity of the marriage itself. So moving back to the children and what was said about them in the Oprah interview with Harry and Meghan in March 2021, Meghan's concerns at the time, of course, was that Archie was not referred to as a prince under what is broadly referred to as the George V Convention, which ultimately takes the form of this letters patent issued by the King in 1917. This was ultimately a legal open letter of sorts expressing the royal will, and in this context, the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness. And the key provision of the letters patent was as follows: that the children of any sovereign of these realms and the children of the sons of any such sovereign, and the eldest living son of the eldest son of the Prince of Wales, shall have and at all times hold and enjoy the style, title, or attribute of Royal Highness, with their titular dignity of Prince or Princess prefixed to their respective Christian names, or with their other titles of honour. In other words, all of the children of the sovereign will be called Prince or Princess. Those children whose father is a son of the sovereign can be called Prince or Princess, and the eldest son of the Prince of Wales can be called a prince. So taking from that, as I said, before King Charles acceded the throne, there was no entitlement for those children to be called Prince or Princess. But as soon as Charles became king, they did become entitled because, of course, Prince Harry was the son of the current sovereign. The difficulty with all this, of course, being that the role of a prince or princess essentially is the closeness to the monarch and ultimately amounting to royal duties. But since Harry and Meghan have stepped back from their royal duties, it's jumped into debate as to whether or not the children should have the titles HRH and Prince or Princess. And the most explosive part about all of this, of course, is that King Charles has reportedly not allowed Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet to use the HRH titles, as noted by royal commentators. This has said to be because that Harry and Meghan decided to step back from royal duties, and upon the ban on them using the HRH title, that this cannot pass down to their children. Newspapers would have you understand that Harry and Meghan are furious about this ban extending to their children after what is reported to be tense negotiations with Buckingham Palace. Reported sources have said that there have been talks over the last weeks with the palace, and that the palace has been insistent that Archie and Lilibet are to be referred to as Prince and Princess rather than HRH. That is the agreement, the quote says, because they are not working royals. Now, one argument would be that since Harry and Meghan have decided to essentially give up or step back from their royal duties, that therefore the titles should not be going down to their children. On the other hand, one might say that it is their entitled birthright, and they should be ultimately able to decide that when they get older and not be restricted by the decisions made by Harry and Meghan. And some further thoughts and reading on this subject, which I found very interesting, in the UK Constitutional Law blog, which I'll link in the description below. I'm going to cherry pick the opening of the concluding thoughts paragraph, which you can read in full at the link in the description below. This is obviously not a sponsored video. It begins, in essence, the monarch decides who becomes a prince or princess, and the rules are manipulated to achieve the desired outcome. The basic fact should be embraced, as any mystique the 1917 letters patent creates is outweighed by the disadvantages that flow from its unequal and untransparent nature. This then creates the opportunity to think more deeply about the nature of service and on what terms a member of the royal family undertakes such service. So ultimately, I thought you'd find that an interesting overview and fairly shallow dive into the UK Constitution and succession of royal titles. As I said, the blog linked in the description below is very interesting to read, but perhaps you'll have your own thoughts and comments, which I invite you to leave in the box below. And as always, please do remember to like this video and subscribe. That helps my channel grow, it helps pump the algorithm. And as always, thank you for watching and putting up with my croaky voice.